morning. I am doing a video from Seeking a Thread's current thread of do a video about a book, about an album that's from in the Acid Archives book. This is a really cool book that highlights rare psychedelic music from the 60s from the US and Canada. So it says pick an album, read the entry, and talk about it a bit. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to show them without Van Morrison. This album came out in 1968. It is their first album without Van Morrison. It was released on the Tower record label, and that was the label that Pink Floyd albums released in the United States. And I collect Pink Floyd, and when I was going down the rabbit hole of Tower Records, I found this. This is Canadian version. I have the US version. It's at my office somewhere. The Acid Archive says this came out in 67, but it came out in 68. The book says about Now and Then, the first post-Van Morrison Then album takes their gritty R&B sound a step into the future by adding fuzz guitar and some Eastern musical themes. A number of the songs are in a more straight R&B bag, and while they're pretty good, this is certainly of more interest for the punky Witch Doctor and Walking in the Queen's Garden, or the freaky sitar-heavy Square Room, than for horn-laden soul like What's the Matter Baby, You're Just What I Was, is nice, if slightly out of character pop song. There's a lot to like here. I could have done without their uninteresting version of Nobody Loves You When You're Down and Out, though. So that is Patrick Lundberg's opinion of that album. They did have a couple singles that came out because this album was on Tower. Walking in the Queen's Garden, and I Happen to Love You. The next album came out in November 1968. Time Out, Time In, for them. This, they kind of went all psychedelic. Again on Tower. This is their last album on Tower Records. A lot of fuzz guitar, really psychedelic. A lot of sitar on side 2. They're really representing psych at this point. The typical Tower Records orange label. What the book says about this album, this time they get even further out with more sitar, more fuzz guitar, less R&B, stranger lyrics. My favorite line, buzz buzz, it's a wonderful feeling to be upside down now and waltz on the ceiling. A lot of this is pretty great. The overall songwriting isn't as strong as on Now and Then, but the consistency of style compensates. So I think this is his favorite Them album from what he covers. In 1969, Tower released a comp called The Underground. It's got 2 of the Them songs on it. It also has the Pink Floyd and Chocolate Watch Band. So this isn't in the book, but it's interesting. Side note, in 1970, they went to Happy Tiger from Tower Records. Ray Ruff, who produced the first 2 albums, started Happy Tiger with Jerry Cole. Jerry Cole, I know, is a surf guitar guy, and then he went into psych, and so Ray Ruff and Jerry Cole started Happy Tiger, and this was the first album of them, and Jerry Cole sings on these first 2 albums, or these last 2 albums. It's more about R&B and rock and roll, getting kind of heavier, definitely heavier, less psych, more, not hard rock, but just heavier. The book says this came out in 1969, but where I see it says 70. What the book writes about this, featuring only one member, Alan Henderson, along with some LA session pros, this self-titled Happy Tiger album is a mixed bag of post-psych rock that is often rated as the weakest of the band's 4 post-band albums. However, the gritty guitar rock has found a certain fan base in recent years, not least in Europe, and it can be found pretty cheap. The last album featured in the book and post-Van Morrison is 1971's Them in Reality. This was full of LA session players. It doesn't have the name. Ray Ruff produced. I'm guessing Jerry Cole is still singing. They do an interesting version of Gloria. The last Happy Tiger album. It says that uncredited musicians on this album are Ry Cooder and Billy Preston. The last entry in the book for Them in Reality says, In Reality is arguably a more interesting and certainly harder to find title than the preceding Happy Tiger LP. By 1971, Them has been reduced to original bassist Alan Henderson, lead guitarist Jim Parker, and drummer John Stark, both formerly with the Kitchen Sink and Armageddon. With the band originals all by Parker and Stark, this is more a post-Armageddon album than anything Them like. Those expecting a continuation of the psychedelic moves that mark the band's Tower releases are in for a surprise. That is Them in Reality. That is my video for Acid Archives Diary, showing the 4 post-Van Morrison albums from 1968 to 1971. Thank you.